Hello Stratters, welcome back. I'm Binkabi and this will be the first match from our tournament on our gaming convention that is here in the town that I live in. It will be between Sebastian playing Burn and our actually the Swedish champion in Legacy 2014 I think, playing Tezzerator, and it's actually my deck that he has borrowed, so it's kinda cool. The fantastic start of turn 1 Chalice of the Void for 1 is good against almost every deck in Legacy, and Burn is certainly not an exception. It shuts off a lot of their spells, which is quite good. Then of course Ancient Tomb helps them a lot, so it's kinda back and forth. And Riftbolt, despite only costing 1 mana, actually has a converted mana cost of 3, so it doesn't really work. Also, when you're not hitting land drops, it's kinda painful to just use Ancient Tomb over and over again, but if that's what you're gonna do, that's what you're gonna do. So Riftbolt will come off suspense and hit for 3. Still not super scary, but it depends on what the Burn player can muster here. I could easily see this turn being really bad. Another Riftbolt is certainly good. and the third Riftbolt is also pretty good. Who needs one mana spells, right? So yeah, that's an Urborg, which is pretty nice because then you can kinda stop taking damage from Ancient Tomb. You use them to accelerate the first turns, and then you use it to tap for black instead when you have a bit more mana, and that's pretty good because otherwise it would be useless. So Urborg is pretty good. It also fixes the mana kinda efficiently, so let's see what we can call forth here. And is it painful? It looks like it will be painful. That's a Tezzerator and a total life loss of 3. But Tezzerator is pretty neat. Depending on which direction you want to go, it's pretty good. I think here plussing is pretty nice because either it eats 2 Riftbolts and finds you a spell, presumably, or an artifact at least, or it gets to go ultimate next turn if you want to do that. And you can always make something a 5/5 because it's kinda easy to bash Burn because they don't have anything to defend themselves with. But shove it in, the Riftbolts are going to the face. But a natural pause here is required because if you do have something to protect yourself with, like a Force of Will, it could be correct to counter a Riftbolt here to stay above something like Fire Blast or something. But I think it's correct, since it's specifically Force of Will here. I think it's correct to just take it because the Riftbolt itself is not lethal, but a Price of Progress, for example, would be. So it's better to counter that. And all you need to do is to survive until your next turn, and then you will get a nice boost in your life. If Tezzerator lives, obviously. But it looks like it might be doing just that. I mean, bearing this is the 4th Riftbolt, there is not many direct damage spells that you wouldn't kill with instead, so it's pretty likely that Tezzerator will stay on 4. And Sebastian's card would be Sulfuric Vortex, which would be game. had Victor not saved his Force of Will for that. Now Rift Bolts are live again, but it's pretty unlikely that he has one of those left. And bolts, chain lightnings, that stuff is no longer a potential. And since you're not dead yet, it's kinda clear that he doesn't have a Fire Blast. Otherwise you would have fired that off on your turn, I think. Or at least in upkeep, but I mean, your opponent could have something, you don't know that, so I'd probably go for it on my turn, and since that did not happen, we can assume that that's not the case. 2 mana, another Talisman. And there goes Tezzerator. Not a very big ultimate, just for 6, but 6 life versus burn is pretty huge actually. Now Sebastian needs to find 3 spells most likely, unless the next one also happens to be a Sulfuric Vortex, then that by itself might be enough actually. And that Nihil Spellbomb that Victor found earlier is pretty dead, because it's a 1 mana spell. The only one in the whole main deck. But it's required. It's good against many decks. It's good to be able to dig for it. Or transmute artifact for it, if you so prefer. Sebastian draws a land and passes on 4, which is, I mean, pretty obvious that he doesn't have much. The only card that makes sense to not play here is his own, I mean, a Price of Progress. That's basically it. And Tezzerator comes down here painlessly, and here I might have gone for the minus, but since Sebastian is at 12, I could see going up on Tezzerator as well, depending on my hand. Since the ultimate once again is for 3, or for 6 rather, it will be hard to lose from that. And with another Chalice, it's at least for 8, so we're getting really close to just ultimating for victory here. So it looks pretty good for the Tezzerator deck, I have to say. And this fetching indicates just a thinning of the deck. I guess even if Sebastian has something like Searing Blaze, it's not super likely that it will ever have a target, so it's probably for the best to just thin. And a passing of the turn again. Probably not a good sign. So we need to find 3 more artifacts, and we know that 1 is live. And Tezzerator will go up, so that means no win this turn. 5 cards, and it looks like 4 lands and a Force of Will. Great. I mean, it's not that bad, because you wouldn't want 4 lands anyway, but the Force of Will could have been pretty neat. Talisman, so it's like, it was like 1 short. Is that correct? Or did he actually have the kill here? He has a Transmute artifact, and he has Chalice. That wouldn't have worked, I don't think. There's nothing he can fetch up with Transmute that gives him multiple artifacts. I guess Baleful Strix could have been a thing, and drawing another artifact. But we know that the top cards were that there were no artifacts, so well, I guess it would have been a shuffle in between. So yeah, but that's just way more complicated than it needs to be. With the Top the Founder in play, a Chalice for 1, Tezzerator 2, 4, 6, 8 for 10 next turn will be lethal actually, because you can just make a Thopter and a Bash. and that would seal the deal no matter what, because if Tezzerator goes off here, Sebastian cannot play more spells. So it looks like we will have a Thopter. Yeah. End of turn, make a Thopter, gain a life. That would make Tezzerator still be able to shoot for 8, but with an empty chalice, that's all it takes, would be for 10, and then Thopter bash would finish it off. I guess you should attack first. This still works, but I guess you should actually use Tezzerator before attacks, if there is something like Searing Blaze. But it will do it anyway, so that's game 1. Let's go over to game 2. Alright, time for the second game here between Burn and Tezzerator. I'd say that it's basically, I think it's a 50-50 matchup actually, because the Tezzerator deck has so many good ways to just shut the Burn player out that they have to answer, and Burn is not that great at answering things. It's likely that Sebastian has like 4 Smash to Smithereens, and maybe he has something else, a Tiny Splash for something. And he could have a lot of stuff that destroys artifacts, but it's hard to put up a good amount of pressure and finding the answers. So if Tezzerator can just produce something remotely unfair, they will win. Like if this is another Chalice, that's pretty good. Signet is not that great, but it's pretty good still. I mean, we can see a Jace next turn, depending on what the Burn player does. We could see just a Tezzerator animating the Signet would probably do it, because to take it down you would need a bolt of some kind, or a Goblin Guide attack plus something, and that still leaves a 5/5, which actually raises pretty well. So that could be a thing. Also next turn could be land, Sword of the Meek, Thopter Foundry, make a Thopter, gain a life, and that would probably just win the game, more or less so. But that's assuming that the cards are in hand and so forth, but we will see. Fetch pre-combat, then attack, alright, and we have Talisman on top. Not that impactful. Doesn't do much right now. And we follow it up with Eidolon. Ouch. That's tough. Now, for example, if the Thopter combo is indeed in hand, it would be painful to play, but I still think that would be enough. Baleful Strix is not enough. But it's still pretty good. It stops the attacks pretty well. It basically means that Victor will take 0 in the next combat step, unless the bird dies somehow. So deep in the tank here with a pretty stacked hand, it seems. A lot of cards. We know that there is a Talisman, but it's kind of risky to use the Ancient Tomb now. That means a Talisman would cost you 4 life to play, which is pretty harsh. I'm not certain I would have done that. It depends on your hand, obviously. You're gonna see an Engineered Explosives for 1. Interesting. That could also take out the Goblin Guide and actually save the Baleful Strix, if that's the line you want to take. It can also be saved for other potential Goblin Guides, or Swift Spears for that matter. I still think I would trade off here if given the chance, since the Eidolon doesn't really have to attack. Ooh, a Batterskull. Skull. That could turn things around pretty effectively, since it doesn't even trigger Eidolon, and lifelink and vigilance is huge. So this requires Sebastian to finish it now, or rather before the Batterskull can connect, or find something to stop the life gain. If, for example, a Sulfuric Vortex would be played here, which it seems like it might be, because 3 mana is a lot for burn and they don't have that many 3 mana spells. So if this is a Sulfuric Vortex, then I don't think the Batterskull will be enough. Then Victor will go down to 8, then 6 for playing the Batterskull, and then 4 before he can even attack. And Sebastian would be at 13. Yeah, it wouldn't actually win the race, so Batterskull is no longer good. Still have to draw it though, because it's on the top. So this is very harsh. I don't know what he can do here really to get out of this. Since I build a deck, I should know. There is not many cards. I guess a land plus Tezzerator animating engineered explosives bashing for 5 could actually work. The Baleful Strix is not the ideal line, no. That's confirmed. But if a Tezzerator would have been dropped here, then Sebastian would have gone to 10 and then 8. Victor would have gone to 4, needing to dodge 2 burn spells. And then bash for 5 again, down to 3, and then he goes to 1, can't play more spells. But I guess Eidolon could attack in between. I'm not even certain that Tezzerator would have done it. That's an out at least. I guess it could animate the Signet the turn after that, so yeah, that would probably have done it, but... So let's see if Victor has something up his sleeve, or if it's going to be 1-1 in a second here. It's not... Either way, it's not long before this game is over. That much is clear. Chain Lightning, bringing Victor down to 3 and Sebastian down to 11. So that means that Victor will be at 1 when he untaps, and best case scenario he can attack for 6, dropping Sebastian to 5, and then Vortex will drop him to 3. So that would not work. And he has more. Second Highland. Well, that still stands then. Tezzerator would still not be good enough. Going to 1, let's see what he has. Land! And Seed of Treasure should go to the graveyard. But I think this is, yeah, this is the end. -3, -7, -11. Alright, game 3. Then it's time for the third and final game between Burn and Tezzerator. Tezzerator on the play for this game, which is a huge advantage. Turn 1 Chalice for 1, for example, would be great. Turn 1 Talisman of Dominance is not super bad either. It's painful, but if he can drop... Does he have a Planeswalker? That's... I mean, if you have this opener, you want to have either the full combo or a Planeswalker. That's what you need to really get a payoff here. If your follow-up is neither, then you're probably screwed and should not have kept the hand. Mount and go. Okay, so Chalice for 1 wouldn't have done much. Tezzerator will cost you 3 life, but I think it's 3 life well invested. And a lightning bolt will be played in response here. Which is kinda interesting. It could actually be correct to bolt Tezzerator, depending on your hand obviously. If your hand is... But I guess if you had a Swift Spear or Goblin Guide, you would have played that already. Because you don't want Tezzerator to go ultimate if you can help it. Even if there's only one artifact on the field right now, we know that he has a Chalice that will probably come down next turn, and that already is more than a bolt. Looks like we're gonna see some kind of bolt. Lightning bolt, and it will go to face. I don't agree with that, but it's fine. I guess if Tezzerator would have been the target, I'd probably just sack it to animate my Talisman and bash for 5, giving Sebastian 3 more turns to do something without playing 1 mana spells. That seems like a tall order for burn. I guess they could go like land, smash the smithereens, and that would be unfortunate. But Tezzerator is still around, so I mean, it doesn't have to go ultimate this turn. But if you're tapping Ancient Tomb, I think that's a sign that we will see an ultimate soon. What do you play from the tomb? A Dimir Signet and a Baleful Strix. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's 8 life if it's ultimate time here. Looks like it is. Like this line a lot, because 15 and you do have a little bit of a board presence, and you have a Chalice for 1 with your opponent stuck on 1 mana. I think that's good. If you don't have any other follow-up now, you could still lose. And I'm not certain what he has. Yeah, he has another Tezzerator. Then this line is certainly correct. And there is the good old Rift Bolt, dodging the Chalice. So now we can play a Tezzerator without paying life. Tezzerator right now is 4/8 again, so 1 more artifact and it's lethal actually. So did we find one or did we break? We did find something. Another Chalice. Interesting. So then this Rift Bolt... Oh, there's a Seed of Silent too. So Tezzerator is already lethal, so unless this Rift Bolt goes for Tezzerator, the game will end next turn. So hopefully Sebastian will recognize that before it's too late. We will see. Rift Bolt gets cast at you. Redirect to Tezzerator. Alright, then the game will not end next turn. What do we have? That's kind of amazing actually. Not that Rift Bolt is that great right now, but it's still pretty funny. And that's a Chalice for 3. 0, 1 and 3 does not hurt the Tezzerator deck that much. The Chalice on 2 is pretty heartbreaking though. But I could actually see a Chalice for 2 being pretty good here actually. Yes, you will lose Tezzerator next turn, but you have a clock and your opponent has not, and besides Rift Bolt, I guess they have Sulfuric Vortex, but that would also just mean that you win. So I could actually see a challenge for 2 being correct here, even though it's rarely the case. So that's kinda cool, I guess. You would be down on a Tezzerator, but yeah, it could actually work. The only time that I actually play challenge for 2 is when you already have the full combo going and are afraid of something that might intercept it for 2. But that's also rare. So we have a fetch here, which means a whole turn off from the Baleful Strix attack. So I think it's on Eidolon. Do we have a price of progress? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's for 10. That's not gonna do it. We need to squeak out a bit more damage. 5 at the moment. I see Sulfuric Vortex. Oh, there's the Smash the Smithereens. I mean, you would have saved the same amount of damage, but you would have been up a Chalice, I suppose. Still, that's not... it's still not the end of the world, because the best... I guess if you have something like a triple Goblin Guide bash next turn or something like that, or double Swift Spear plus Lightning Bolt, that might be a thing. No, price of progress would be lethal, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah. So we have an animation on the talisman and a passing of the turn. So Sebastian is at 3. I guess it would actually be better to animate Seed of the Synod here, since you don't mind losing lands, but that's nitpicking. So it's Sebastian at 3. The only card I can really see being useful here is Price of Progress. That's the only card that matters now. And there is definitely a Force of Will in Victor's hand, so that will be hard. I guess if you have 2 1-mana artifact destruction spells, you could actually live this turn. Playing City, animating Signet, response, Price of Progress, but unfortunately we do have a Force of Will, so that will do it for the first match. Tezzerator will take it down 2 games to 1, and we will be moving on to the second match and whatever wonders that brings. So thanks for watching. I will be seeing you shortly.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, it really helps us out. You can find us on Twitter at MagicGathStrat, Facebook /MagicGatheringStrat, or on the web, magicgatheringstrat.com. There you can find articles and free prize-supported leagues. This is all brought to you by our Patreons and cardhoarder.com. If you enjoy this content, please consider supporting us at patreon.com/MagicGatheringStrat.